Hello and welcome to the virtual speaker training. The Children's Society has an ambitious goal to overturn the damaging decline in children and young people's well-being by 2030, and will only achieve this if many more people are aware of the Children's Society and the challenges currently faced by young people growing up in today's society. This is why speakers are so important to our work, and we thank you for joining today's training as a community ambassador to become a great speaker for the charity. So what's involved? A speaker has the responsibility of booking talks with groups and organisations into their diary. This opens the charity to your networks, from your knowledge and research into your community. And we ask you to be proactive in this task. Now, there are talk requests that come into us centrally, which you may be offered if you're sufficiently local, but please don't rely on these. We ask volunteer speakers to aim to speak for a minimum of 4 times per year, to ensure that you remain up to date with the charity's work and to keep your role active. Before writing your talks, undertake some research into your audience and ask your community relationship manager, or CRM as they will be known from now on, if they know any prior engagements with this group. Make a prior agreement with your contact as to the length, format and content of the talk. Ask if there is anyone significant who we should be thanking at this talk, and discover if it's appropriate to consider using an electronic presentation or video. Some places have facilities for these, some don't. Consider the age and demographic of your audience and ask what appropriate asks may be made at the talk, either through time, money or voice. Utilise the resources available to write your talk. There are some sample talks and PowerPoint presentations on the Volunteer Hub, along with workshops, interactive ideas and talk add-ins. The Children's Society website have a number of young people's stories, and if you're struggling to find a case study or story that fits your requirements, ask your CRM for support. Your CRM will be happy to help you plan an appropriate talk or read through your plans and ideas and offer supportive feedback. Make final confirmations with the talk organisers a few days before the talk. This is reassuring both for you and the organisation. Attend on the day, time, venue agreed and arrive 30 minutes before the event starts, and deliver the talk when required to. Now, quite often there will be a specific time within another meeting that you'll deliver your talk. Make sure you know when that is, and if there's going to be any cues for you to get up and talk. After your talk, allow time to network as appropriate and talk to people one-to-one. This is a great time to add value and to direct those motivated by your storytelling to undertake a supportive action which is right for them, either time, money or voice. Following the talk, thank the organiser for the invitation and book future talks if this is appropriate. There are so many areas of the Children's Society work that could keep running to the same organisation and have something new to say. The more the group hears about our charity's work, the more they understand and the more they will want to help us to improve the lives of children and young people. Update your CRM with any feedback or questions that may have come up. Calculate the volunteering hours you have given to this project and talk, and notify your CRM. This is really important as well. This will include talk time preparation and all your time with the organisation and travel to get there and back. You may also be asked to attend a local event for the Children's Society to extend thanks, in which case memorise a few stories of young people that could be shared with groups of all ages, and have a quick 2-minute thank you talk memorised so that you can speak unprompted with a thanks and a quick update. This is useful for impromptu conversations where people ask you about your voluntary role. You could approach so many different groups and organisations to offer to speak. The Children's Society, as you may know, have close ties with the Church of England. This is historical, which provides many opportunities within the Church of England setting for talks. But there are other religious and faith groups that are non-Christian who have an interest in welfare of children and young people. And the Children's Society are keen to work with all faiths and none. Schools, universities and educational centres may be interested in a talk. At schools, it may be possible to have an opportunity to speak with parents of an evening and talk about the challenges that they may have also noted. Work with your CRM to prepare appropriate talks for children and young people and direct a greater level of sensitivity in these areas where required. Social groups are wide and varied. For example, Brownies, Cubs, the Masons, U3A. There are so many different social groups in communities across the country. So identify the talk booking secretary and make contact. Be aware that sometimes you need to wait for a space to become available in their calendar, and quite often this can be in the next year. There are other networks in existence, mainly with a business link, such as breakfast clubs. Reach out to the organiser and see if you can have a 10-minute slot to talk about our charity. Businesses, particularly those with canteens, will also often welcome an external speaker of interest to their staff during the lunch break. These are quite frequently called yellow hat sessions. Considering that many parents and grandparents are in work, there's a lot of synergy. Libraries are also a place that sometimes welcome external speakers. And I'm sure you can think of many more. Undertake some research and then pick up the phone and call them. Send them an email or write to them, but be prepared to wait between 2 to 3 weeks for a follow-up. Ensure that you ask a request for an opportunity to come and speak about the work of the Children's Society. Make sure that this ask is a clear request. Try and pencil in a date in their calendar as soon as possible. So what makes a great talk? I just want you to think for a moment of someone who has given a speech that moved or motivated you. It might be a politician, a campaigner like Martin Luther King or Michelle Obama. It could be an actor, a poet, or someone in your personal life like a teacher or a spiritual leader. Considering this talk, I'd like you to think about the answers to these questions. What was the most important thing they did to get your attention? What were they thinking when you listened to them speak? What were you thinking when you listened to them speak? What were your feelings when you listened to them speak? What did they do to provoke you to feel motivated? Now, I want you to pause this presentation just for 5 minutes and note the answers to these questions down. And it's worth coming back to them again and again when you're thinking about writing your talks. Human communication includes hearing. You recall 10% of the things you hear. Seeing. You recall 20% of the things you see. But if you combine hearing and seeing together, you recall 50%. Worth thinking about that when you're writing your speech and when you're giving your talk. There are so many places that will provide you with information from which to compose your talk. A good place to start is our volunteer hub, where we share talks written by others. If you find an appropriate talk, you can take a copy of it and use it as your base template. and then modify it for duration, personal tonality, requirements of talk, and really make it your own. If you're still trying to access the Volunteer Hub and struggling, please do let your CRM know. The Children's Society website has a mine of information with reports and articles linked. Our impact report, otherwise known as our annual report and accounts, is published every autumn for the preceding financial year. It documents our progress during the previous financial year and contains some useful statistics and case studies. A summary of our impact report has a dedicated web page which your CRM can link you to, or you can download the full report on the Charity Commission's website. The Good Child Report is published every year in early autumn, and the research considered measures children's subjective well-being and happiness, along with other points relevant in society at the time. This is an amazing report which is eagerly read by professionals working with children and young people, and some of the data contained within it is picked up by the Office for National Statistics. The report is available in another number of formats, and we would recommend that you at least read the summary version of the report. Although a little hard to find at times, our data packs are written for local authorities and are incredibly useful for tracking down useful data which is specific to a local authority area. They're generally updated in time for the Parliamentary Party Conference season in the autumn. So again, please give your CRM a shout if you're struggling to find these on our website. I think most CRMs do send out the link to these as they're published. And your CRM will also be able to access a library of case studies, stories from young people who've been supported by the Children's Society on various work themes. Do speak to your CRM with any specific stories you're looking for linked to the charity's work. We have a suite of videos that can be downloaded and utilised within or alongside a talk. These can be found on the Children's Society's Vimeo channel. So, options for delivering a talk. There are three main options for ways for you to deliver your talk. Memorise the speech. This allows eye contact, but can be quite difficult for long talks unless you're really good at this stuff. Read from text. This ensures precision but doesn't always sound too natural, and it does hinder eye contact. Speak from slides or notes. This ensures your talk is logically organised, allows a degree of eye contact, and also allows for improvisation and some room for error. We recommend you take some time to review this TED Talk. It's the 110 Techniques of Communication and Public Speaking, and it's by David J.P. Phillips. If you can't find it, again, please do ask your CRM. The magic formula. At the Children's Society, we utilise the magic formula structure when preparing talks. This is a talk structure which follows a story arc, keeps listeners engaged and interested throughout, and encourages listeners to feel, which ultimately leads to greater long-term support and engagement after the talk. Prioritise 2 or 3 points to get across. Don't overfill your talk. Include real examples of issues and how the Children's Society are working to resolve these issues to make the situation real. And simplify the complex so it's easy to understand. Stories give an edge to the talk over and above talks without a story. Evidence the issues you're talking about with real stories. Build your own story bank. Capture lots of stories that can be utilised in different settings. Listeners can visualise the situation better and put themselves into the shoes of a young person or their parents. Not only can this bring a human element, but it also brings emotion to the listener. Stories make the talk more understandable. How did TCS improve the situation? What would have happened if TCS had not been there? So here is the structure of the magic formula, and by following the order and elements in this structure, you will have written a persuasive and impactful talk about the Children's Society. Do start your talk by introducing yourself and thanking for the invitation to speak, and then move on to the magic formula structure. First, we need the listener to connect to the problem. What is the essence of the problem faced by our beneficiaries and the consequences of that problem? So this is the reality of the problem, its core. If we take county lines, for example, this would highlight that hundreds of children every day in England are being groomed into gangs and illegally trafficked against their will across the country to sell drugs. But what is not obvious about this problem? With county lines, people may not have thought about the disruption to a young person's education, and that children from all backgrounds are being groomed into county lines without their families having a clue why they're behaving the way they are, and the fact that children as young as 7 are being targeted because they are less likely to be of interest to the police. What story or example brings to life how difficult this can be? Now we start to look at a case study. We won't give the whole story in its entirety just yet, just enough to provide evidence for the first 2 points above. We use the story as far as we can to show the reality of the problem faced by the young person and their family. Secondly, we need to flag for the Children's Society that, we're flying the flag for the Children's Society. In this section, we provide proof that TCS has the solution and that its services, policy, lobbying, systems change and research has the solution to the problem young people coerced into county lines are facing, and we are worthy of their support. So what story shows that this service works? So from the case study, we're now talking about how the Children's Society provides support for the young person in the story and their family. And notice this means the case study will flow from the problem in point C. How can you show this impact numerically? Now, there's always someone in the listening audience who loves a statistic or two. And here we move away from the story to the statistical evidence, and that's what we to show that what we do works. Continuing the county lines example, 75% of the young people we work with in our Disrupting Exploitation service report feeling much safer after our time spent with them. Our prevention team trained 13,363 professionals, such as police officers who come into contact with young people involved in county lines, to see them as young people who are being exploited, who are victims rather than criminals. And 93% of those trained say they are now building a better rapport with the young people that they engage with following this training. So how can you apply Cialdini's 6 principles of influence, such as authority or social proof? If you're unfamiliar with Cialdini's 6 principles, Google or ask your CRM for a link, and we'll be happy to send you one. A positive recommendation from a friend always subconsciously puts in a positive reinforcement. So we can do something similar by documenting positives in our society. Again, look at the work that links to county lines issues. Our Disrupting Exploitation service was highly commended for a safeguarding award, and our prevention programme won a partnership award category in a recent Children and Young People Now award, which can be seen as a positive reinforcement when mentioned. And what, simply put, is this service? And what is the special ingredient? Sometimes a special ingredient jumps out at you, and on other occasions it's hard to find. Not as simply put as we would like. But a good way to think about this is in outcomes. How the service or work has positively impacted on a young person. And it could be that you now revisit the case study that you were working through earlier and provide an update or an outcome with the emphasis on a positive impact on that young person. It could be some quotes from young people who have utilised the service in that area of work, or it could be some additional relevant statistics about a user's experience. Don't finish your talk at the special ingredient though. By this time we hope you have engaged your audience on an emotional level, and many will be keen to take action. So you'll now need to signpost just a few ways that they could support the charity through time, money or voice. And it may be that you're in an environment where you're seeking a specific voluntary role to be filled, for example a volunteer speaker, or it could be that you're there to promote a forthcoming fundraising event or activity, and of course finish with a final thanks and encourage people to come and find you after the talk to ask further questions. Perhaps the most important part of your talk is the networking after your talk. This is where questions are asked and offers of support are made. So if at all possible, please allow time to stay for the networking element of this opportunity. Set up a stand full of different literature. An information stand becomes a magnet, encouraging people over to you to browse comfortably. The stand will serve as an icebreaker because you can stand and start a conversation linked to the materials that someone's looking at. Take a look at our resources mini guide for more details on these resources and what's available. If you're aware of the role a specific person holds, don't be worried about suggesting literature to them. For example, a vicar might be interested in a book on mission giving. Also encourage that posters are left and then put onto local community notice boards. If you ask a question that you're not comfortable in answering, or if you've received an offer that you are unsure what to do with, please thank the individual and offer our CRM's business card to encourage them to touch base. If they want to leave their information with you, please do pass it on to your CRM, and please get them to write the information down clearly in their own hand and follow GDPR guidelines with keeping that data safe and disposing of it safely in due course. I can't state how important this is. Sometimes people just want to talk about their own experiences and share stories. Please listen, but don't be drawn into any views which don't align with those of the Children's Society. It's a wonderful incentive to receive a donation, and if the organisation already has volunteers working for the Children's Society, do pass those donations onto them for banking and forwarding to the charity. For anything you need to send in, please review the Paying in Donations guidelines. So what are your next steps? Become familiar with the Children's Society website and know where to sign people to take action through time, money and voice. Ensure you have access to the Volunteer Community Hub and review the section with the mini guides highlighted in this presentation and the speaker resources. Make a proactive plan with your CRM to book your first few talks into your diary and speak to your CRM about shadowing another speaker at their talk. Now, at this point, I would normally invite people to ask questions. However, as this is a virtual presentation and recording, I will ask you to now book a meeting with your community relationship manager to ask any questions you may have and direct you to any links that you haven't currently received. Make sure you keep in contact with your CRM on a regular basis. They will be a goldmine of support for you. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and thank you for beginning this journey as a volunteer for the Children's Society. Your time really does make a difference.